The hemp industry is full of people selling products. Very few are actually building the infrastructure behind them. And my next guest is one of those rare operators. Nejc Rusjan is the founder and CEO of Essentia Pura, a Slovenian biotech hemp company that's quietly become one of Europe's most trusted white label and private label CBD manufacturers. Built on supercritical CO2 extraction, pharmaceutical-grade manufacturing standards, and a team of actual scientists, Essentia Pura isn't chasing trends. They're setting the bar for what compliant, consistent, science-backed cannabinoid hemp production actually looks like at scale. We're going to dig into the European market, what brands get wrong when sourcing manufacturers, and what it really takes to build a CBD product worth putting your name on. Nejc, welcome to HempAware Radio. Glad to have you here.
Thanks, Tyler. Pleased to be here.
Awesome. So to kind of get our audience acquainted with your background and kind of what led you up to creating this amazing CBD extraction company. Before we get into that, can you tell me a little bit about your childhood and do you remember maybe some influences as a young human being that were kind of planted in your mind, that led you or kind of were precursors to you actually becoming an entrepreneur and working with hemp?
Sure. So I was born and raised in the western part of Slovenia, which is Central Europe. Was doing lots of sports during my primary school and high school, but my dad was also an entrepreneur. And I think I liked his lifestyle or way of doing, having the entrepreneurial freedom and his mindset. So, and building actually something, if I use this wording, with bare hands. So yeah, I wanted to follow that path as well. Had already some high school business ideas, from sales to marketing, and then I decided to pursue my degree in economics, business and administration, so to say. And yeah, after working in consulting for a while, I decided to take my own path and founded a company which is called Essentia Pura.
Nice, man. So your dad had a big influence on your entrepreneurial journey and studying economics, and you kind of wanted to follow in his footsteps or live a similar lifestyle that he was able to live?
Yeah, I mean, it influenced me a bit, yeah, for sure. So also then here is a very strong entrepreneurial community, not so startup, but maybe some people would call it old boring business models, but which still works. So yeah.
Nice. So take me back to 2018, 2019. You're in Slovenia, you discover what cannabinoids can do for people around you, and you decide to build a company around this idea of helping people with this compound. What was that moment actually like for you when you discovered the power of hemp and CBD?
Yeah, sure. So back in 2019, when it got started, CBD in Europe was still in a strange phase, so to say. There was a lot of excitement around cannabinoids, but also a huge amount of, I would say, misinformation, low quality products, and companies making claims they couldn't really support. So it's a standard of a supplement or wellness industry. And what caught my attention first was seeing people around me genuinely benefit from cannabinoids, and they got better sleep, reduced stress, improved recovery, and overall well-being. Nothing magical or unrealistic, but enough to realize there was something real there. So at the same time, I noticed a massive gap between the potential of the plant itself, the hemp plant, and the professionalism of the industry. And as many products were inconsistent, purely formulated, lacked documentation, or they were being manufactured without serious quality systems behind them. And that's really where the idea for Essentia Pura started, particularly within the specialization targeting CBD segment. So I didn't just see, so to say, the opportunity to sell CBD. it was an opportunity which was a very of interest to me to build infrastructure around it properly. And like from manufacturing, formulation, compliance, long-term partnerships, which are crucial, and at the end, quality control, obviously. So bringing a more serious nutraceutical and pharmaceutical mindset, as you mentioned in the beginning, into an industry that was still very immature at the same time.
For sure. So are you saying you saw the gap in the market because of the quality of the products that people were getting just didn't have the standards that you believed could be met, and so you went with manufacturing because of that? Because I mean, you could have gone into retail sales, you could have done consulting for people that were manufacturing, but you decided, no, I'm going to take this on and I'm going to do it myself. Like, can you kind of walk me through that thought process and why you went with that direction?
Yeah, firstly was mainly on the personal preference, because I wanted to build something myself, have a production, have a manufacturing facility, and on the other hand, that I wasn't. My expertise didn't lie really in marketing, e-commerce, businesses. It laid more on establishing a team, like for manufacturing, and on the other hand was B2B sales. Okay, we could have done B2C brand as well, but we decided not to do so. So we do not compete with our clients, which are B2C brands, e-commerces.
Right.
We are just people behind the brand.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that kind of leads into my curiosity of this idea of CO2 extraction, supercritical CO2 extraction. And, for the brand owner listening who just wants a really good quality, clean product, why does this extraction method actually matter to them and to their customers?
Yeah. So I think that the extraction matters because it directly affects consistency, purity, and then the final cannabinoid and terpene profile of the product. Supercritical CO2 extraction particularly gives us a very controlled process. It allows us to selectively extract compounds while avoiding residual solvents and preserving more of the plant's natural profile. Most consumers will never ask what the extraction method was used, if we are honest here, but they absolutely notice when products feel inconsistent from batch to batch. And for a brand owner or our clients, consistency is everything. And if one bottle works differently than the next one, then their customers or consumer trust can disappear very quickly. So the extraction method is basically part of the foundation here. And if the raw extract is inconsistent, everything built on top of it becomes harder to control later in the formulation and the production.
And makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Right.
I discussed previously about the inconsistency as well. So actually, many established brands on the market turn to us or other companies using similar extraction methods that we do, mainly because of the inconsistency of the product.
So that consistency leads to reliability and trust, and ultimately helps you keep a solid customer base that can rely on you for that consistency and quality, essentially.
Yeah, because then at the end we get a higher retention rate from our clients, and the clients of our clients or the end consumers are also benefit from this.
Exactly. So you're manufacturing to ISO, GMP, like FDA standards in a market flooded with low quality CBD. Like, how big of a problem is compliance actually? And what should a brand be asking a manufacturer before they ever sign a contract and work with them?
I think that compliance is a little bit bigger issue than most of people would realize. Particularly the CBD industry still has a reputation problem because too many companies launched products before building proper systems that we discussed before behind them. And a lot of brands only ask about the price and potency, and that's it. But here there are some other smarter questions I would use than asking for the price and quality, like asking for a specific COAs, checking to ensure the batch-to-batch consistencies, trying different batch outcomes from the suppliers, asking about other assays, such as stability data. How is I would say traceability handled in this case? How is everything documented? If something wrongs with the end product, there is a product recall, and then you need to have a proof of a record down to the C.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And you guys seem very meticulous. You have your SOPs and your processes. And I mean, you have a PhD running your lab and a pharmaceutical background across your team.
Yeah.
How does that change the product compared to what most CBD companies are actually shipping with that background that you guys bring?
Yeah, it changes, I would say, the entire development mindset in this case, because we approach formulation very systematically, and not just let's combine trend ingredients because they sound good on social media or because ChatGPT said so, right?
Yeah.
And our lab team whenever we start approaching a new formulation or research and development, there is a lot of studying going around ingredient compatibility, abilities, bioavailability, risks like oxidation risks, for example. We go even down to the sensory experience. So there is a great consumer experience, also in terms of tastes. Then you need to check what about scalability and manufacturing. Yeah, it's nice to find a very niche or exotic, so to say, botanical extract, but if there is a limited production of this, it means that you don't scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
And last but not least, compliance and regulation. So I would say here that a formulation can sound impressive on paper and still fall commercially because it separates after 3 months, oxidizes too quickly, or creates compliance problems later.
Gotcha.
So, to sum up your question here will be having scientific and pharmaceutical expertise helps close the gap between marketing ideas and products that actually perform consistently in the real world.
That's essential. So to kind of shift gears here into, brands that are in the EU, in, Europe, across the world, ultimately, you have companies coming to you guys to help with this white labeling and private labeling, manufacturing. Can you kind of walk me through what it actually looks like for someone who comes to Essentia Pura and says, I want to launch a CBD brand? Like, where does the process begin?
Yeah, sure. So people mostly think it's harder than people expect, so to say. It's much simpler. So when someone comes to us, they usually have like product ideas, target audience, a market they want to sell into, or a rough budget. And then together within our collaboration approach, we figure out first whether this is a white label product or a private label product. Both make sense. So white label is generally faster and low risk. You're using existing proven formulations here and focusing more on branding, packaging, and distribution. On the other hand, private label is more customized, so which includes formulation development, sampling, testing, stability assessments, packaging, compatibility, regulatory documentation, and a longer development timeline. For example, you can launch a brand for white label within our white label program within 2 to 4 working weeks. On the other hand, private label takes a minimum of 10 to 14 working weeks. So one thing here we try to do very early is set realistic expectations from the inquiries or from newly established entrepreneurs, brands entering the market, because launching CBD brand is not just designing a logo and opening a Shopify store. I'm sure you know yourself, because the operational side here matters much more than people initially think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you don't have an audience or a hungry buyer that wants your product and you go through all that work to create a product line and you haven't worked backwards from the end goal, then there could be some major gaps and it could be a big waste of time and money. So you guys really help with that bigger vision of taking this product all the way to the market. And in fact, you guys have surveyed like 50 European CBD brands that you supply. Their average repurchase rate is like somewhere between 85 to 90%. I mean, that's pretty powerful number. Like, what do you feel like is driving that repurchasing and reordering? What are these brands doing to have that consistent, steady supply and growth?
Sure. The biggest driver here is consistency, which we discussed before, because most customers don't become loyal because a product has the flashiest marketing. They may purchase it once, yeah, but they reorder because the product reliably delivers the same experience each and every time.
Mm-hmm.
And performing well within our experience and with the brands that we work with, usually focus on like clear positioning, realistic claims, customer trust, and product consistency each and every time.
Okay.
So on the other hand, the weaker brands often keep on chasing trends nonstop instead of building stable product lines customer can rely on. Rather start with few products in your portfolio, few SKUs, establish a foundation there, and then build on that. Yes, wellness products especially trust compounds over time. And once customers trust the product experience, retention improves naturally, and customer acquisition becomes much healthier in the long term.
Right. So, on the contrary, like, what would you say are some of the biggest mistakes that you see brands making, even if they have good quality, good consistency, good supply, like everything is there, they've got you to lean on. The ones that don't actually make it past that first year of sales, what would you say are the biggest factors that cause them to fail when it comes to marketing or the product or messaging? Or I know you say kind of chasing trends, but is there anything else that you have discovered or seen?
Yeah, I would say here that one of the biggest mistakes is underestimating the importance of the product itself, because many founders obsess over marketing while ignoring formulation, quality, stability, packaging capability, documentation, or long-term consistency. And another major mistake maybe is constantly changing suppliers to save small amounts of money. And natural products already have variability challenges by default. And if you keep switching manufacturers, extracts, formulations, then consistency becomes very, very hard, if not nearly impossible. And then the consumers or customers start saying things like, okay, the old fat batch felt better, the old oil tasted better, and so on. And I think that's very damaging for long-term brand trust.
Makes sense. So not only staying consistent with the one supplier, the formula, and what you're providing, but not switching suppliers, because then it adds far more complications and a lot more variability, which just makes it inconsistent and less likely for people to trust.
Yeah, and it can cost you more money than at the end.
Right.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, fewer products, stronger consistency, and better execution. And that's it. It's simple.
Yeah, makes sense. So many startup companies that are wanting to get into this, what are like realistic minimum order quantities? Like if someone comes to you and they're like, hey, we have a concept, we want to put it out into the market. What's that conversation like when someone comes in and they're kind of undercapitalized, or they're just starting out? Maybe they have a certain budget set aside to launch something. Like what does that conversation look like typically?
Yeah, sure. So you definitely don't need millions to launch a CBD brand, but some working capital is that you need. You're right. So our white label products start within 200 units per SKU as a MMOQ. On the other hand, we offer private label development from 500 to 1,000 units per SKU. So normally you start within 2,000 to 3,000 euros or dollars a white label brand, while on the private label it ranges from 5 to 10,000. So, but still, you need to take into consideration a part of products and product development here. In case of private label, obviously, is then the inventory, the packaging, the documentations, testings, and marketing costs. So this, I was speaking with these numbers just for in terms of manufacturing. Because the product itself is only one part of the equation, right?
Of course, yeah. And that's totally reasonable. I mean, starting with 200 units, that's seems like a low barrier of entry for many people that have a vision or a dream to get a product out there and start getting it into the hands of people to get feedback and then go back to the drawing table and just slowly scale with you.
Yeah, and we're keeping it this way since our first years of operation, because we were a startup once as well. We ordered small quantities from our suppliers in terms of packaging, glass packaging, or some other raw materials that we are using. So we appreciated that as well. And yeah, that's why we want to give back to the community and offer low MOQs in terms of white label products.
That's awesome. So to give our listeners some kind of global context here around regulations and the overall like EU regulatory environment around CBD, it's kind of a moving target, very similarly to like it is in the USA. So brands have a difficult time navigating and making sure to stay compliant or stay up with the latest regulations. How are you navigating novel food regulations right now? Like, what does that mean for brands selling into the European market as opposed to like selling into the US market? Is there a huge difference, or are you pretty much following a similar standard across the different countries and regulations?
So also, if Europe sounds like common market, it's actually a little bit fragmented in terms of regulation and behaves differently in practice, even with broader EU frameworks. And because if the law can, in terms of CBD, can vary from a state to a state. In some states, novel food applies, while in the other, it doesn't. And our role here is helping brand navigate this, if you call it complexity, through our awareness of the regulation and legislation within the EU, and then supply them with strong documentation, compliant positioning, manufacturing standards, traceability, as we discussed before. And we decided early on that if we wanted to be part of this journey long term, that we also needed to participate in shaping this future responsibly. And that's one of the reasons we also submitted a novel food application through the EIHA consortium. So EIHA is Industrial Hemp Association here in Europe.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you're EU first focused, obviously being that you're in Slovenia and that's kind of the main market. Yeah. Do you find that essentially the regulations in the EU are a little bit stricter than the US? So as long as you're following EU, it tends to apply to US as well? Or do you have to change testing or any sort of process for a different countries' regulations?
So I think it's similar, the regulation in terms of CBD in Europe and in US. It both lies a little bit in the gray zone, so to say. Well, in terms of food supplement or wellness industry, if we are putting now cosmetics industry aside, you need to be EFSA compliant in Europe, while you have to be FDA compliant in US, right? And so, yeah, two different markets, but I think it's both very similar situation.
Gotcha. And the definition, my understanding of industrial hemp is a little bit different in the EU than it is in the US. Is it true that the legal limit of THC is 0.2%, whereas in the USA it's 0.3%? Is that accurate?
It's changed now. So the European directive is 0.3 now, but in the past it used to be 0.2. Yeah.
Okay, so recently changed.
Some European countries allow it even higher, for example.
Okay, interesting.
So I think in Italy nowadays it's 0.5 or 0.6. And in Czech it can be up to 1%. But
excellent. Okay.
We have to check the latest information. So yeah.
Right.
And there is a list of EU varieties in terms of seeds, which farmers can grow. But then again, it's on the country by country to decide which are allowed to sell.
Okay. So it's kind of approved.
Yeah.
What varieties are you guys typically growing? Do you stay consistent with the varietals, or do you kind of change it up to meet specific cannabinoid or terpene kind of profile based on the customer needs?
So usually we would go for Eletta Campana, which is an Italian variety. We are mainly working with the Italian farms, so we don't cultivate or grow the hemp ourselves. We purchase from selected farms, as our expertise doesn't lie in cultivation. So yeah, they grow it according to the agreement that we have. We've been working with them now almost 10 years. So we got each and every time very high quality cannabinoid profile, hemp profile, terpene profile. So, and also then the extraction yield. For us, it's a higher one and a more quality one, requiring less post-processing.
Gotcha. So you stay with the same variety. That way you have consistency throughout every batch.
Yes.
And how is the product delivered to you guys? Is it like ground up into a biomass, or do they like strip the stalks off? Like, what does the actual raw material look like when it goes into the CO2 extraction?
No, it's without stalks. Basically, it's just leaves and flowers. Then are dried, ground. Sometimes we use separately just leaves, sometimes just the fruiting tops of the plant. Depends on the client to client, depends on the product to product, and to certain particle size, to the humidity that we have in our agreement with the supplier, and then it comes into certain bags, and then it gets processed at our facility.
Nice. And is that just shipped regular, like ground shipping, or do you guys go pick it up yourself when you need like a new shipment, or how does it get delivered across the different countries?
Yeah, no, it's regular truck shipping, ground shipping. So yeah.
So it'll be like on pallets or whatever.
Pallets. You're right, Tyler. Yeah.
Nice. Cool. So to kind of shift gears and get more into like the visionary side of things, you wrote in your founder's letter that the widespread use of botanical products is an inevitable evolution. Where do you see the European CBD market, or just the overall hemp market, like people accepting this as an actual solution to their pains and ailments, and outside of the cannabinoid world, even with hempcrete and hemp clothing and hemp foods? Like, how do you see the future of this plant kind of playing out? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? Like, what is your 3 to 5 year vision?
Yeah, I think that the market is becoming more mature, obviously, both speaking for CBD and speaking for hemp, and more educated and less emotional. So, because if you take a look at 5 years ago, a lot of CBD was driven mostly by hype. And today, consumers, retailers, regulators are all becoming more sophisticated, which is good, right? And I think that the companies here that will succeed over the 3 to 5 years are the ones that manufacture consistently, survive regulatory pressure, build trust, and position cannabinoids inside broader wellness, nutraceutical, and cosmetic categories. I cannot speak, on the other hand, with hemp and food in terms of like hemp flowers, proteins, or hemp cream that you mentioned, because we're not in that type of industry. But I think that cannabinoids will increasingly stop being viewed as the isolated CBD industry that still these days everyone talks about it, and instead become more integrated into the wellness and healthcare market. So one area we strongly believe here at Essentia Pura is that it's reaching the synergy between different cannabinoids and playing with different ratios, developing different ratios, along with other botanical extracts, right? So instead of focusing on a single ingredient here, we see the future in creating more sophisticated formulations that combine cannabinoids with functional botanicals, like targeting specific needs. So, for example, like stress management, sleep, recovery, focus, and overall in general well-being or wellness. Yeah, because consumers are becoming more educated and are looking for complete solutions here rather than just, as I mentioned before, isolated ingredients. So we think that that's where the market is moving in the long term. And the future is probably less just about CBD and more about intelligent botanical formulations, if you want to call them this way.
Yeah, kind of going back to our roots where cannabis was utilized in the pharmacopoeia of doctors and herbalists, and it was just a part of our healing mechanisms, and it was a part of the toolbox, so to speak, or that medicine bag. And now we're kind of bringing that back to our roots, essentially.
Yeah, you're right. I would agree.
Nice. So if you could tell every hemp entrepreneur listening one thing that they could stop doing just for the industry overall, like what is that one thing that companies are doing out there that's damaging this industry, when it comes to sourcing their products or selling their products or any aspect of their business? Like, what would you say that one damaging thing that they should stop doing to ultimately help this industry keep moving forward with a better name?
Stop sourcing purely based on price. Yeah.
Okay.
Because cheap manufacturing, we discussed before, cheap manufacturing decisions become very expensive later.
Right. Because if you try
to... For you, for the industry, for everyone involved. Yeah. Here, if you're talking like from our standpoint and what we've learned with working with our brands, like we become part of the brand reputation as well. So your manufacturer becomes part of your brand reputation.
Exactly. Right. So developing a strong, solid, long-term relationship and just sticking to it and not having it purely be based on price, because ultimately in the end, you're going to make more profit, more revenue as a result of sticking to higher quality, maybe higher value products than trying to just cut corners and save money.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The stronger supply chain you have, the better it is.
Well, I really appreciate this. It's been insightful. I just have a couple last questions here. But before I go into those questions, where can people find you? It's essentiapura.com is your website. And how about online? Where do you hang out? Where can people come start following you on the socials, or what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Sure. So we have a dedicated LinkedIn profile. It's Essentia Pura. We can be found on LinkedIn. We write some blogs as well to try and educate our target audience as much as possible. But if someone is interested, is best if they reach out by email. We can schedule a call. We can have simply a conversation, see if there is a fit for each other, and then we can move on from there.
Awesome. So you heard it, guys. Go to essentiapura.com and send out an email, send their contact info, and just have a conversation with Nejc and the team and see what they can do for you guys. My last question here, Nejc, is in terms of what you would want the world at large to know. Like, imagine you're standing on a podium and you have the ability to send a message to every human being on this planet, and you want them to know one thing. whether it's about hemp or CBD or cannabis or anything. It could be about God. It could be about, your purpose in life. Like, what is it? If you had one message that you could share with every human being on the world that they could remember you by, what would you want to tell them?
I would say that stop worrying about the things that don't matter and focus on what does matter.
I love that. It's so simple. So succinct. That's very wise. Well, Nejc, this was exactly the kind of conversation that this industry needs to hear more of. The real science, the real standards, real talk, essentially. For everyone listening, check out essentiapura.com. I'll have the links in the show notes, so go check out their LinkedIn profile and check out some of the work that they're doing. It's really top-notch and top quality. Thank you so much, Nejc. It was really fun having this conversation, and look forward to doing more exciting things with you into the future.
Thank you, Tyler. Thanks a lot. It was my pleasure.
Awesome, man. I'm just going to stop the recording.
Very, very good, Tyler.
Nice.
I'm not sure how did I reply all these questions, but yeah, sorry, it got darker here.